Most people who know anything about Roman houses know about the atrium, the open-roofed courtyard just inside the front door, with a shallow pool collecting rainwater in the middle. That's the famous one. That's the one that shows up in every textbook photo. What almost nobody talks about is the second courtyard, because a genuinely well-off Roman family didn't build one outdoor room into their house. They built two, on purpose, each doing a completely different job. One courtyard was for business, status, and strangers. The other was for family, quiet, and nobody else. And the wall between them was doing more architectural work than almost anything else in the entire house. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why Roman architects split their outdoor living space in two, what each courtyard was actually built to do, and why that same two-zone thinking is quietly showing up again in serious courtyard house design right now. If you like seeing centuries-old design logic that still solves real modern problems, subscribe now. We break down an overlooked architectural idea like this every single week. Let's get into it. Let's name the two spaces properly, because they're not interchangeable, and Roman builders never treated them that way. The first is the atrium, the tall central hall immediately inside the entrance, open to the sky through an opening called the compluvium, with a shallow collection basin called the impluvium, set into the floor beneath it. The atrium was, by design, the most public room in a private home. This was where the paterfamilias, the male head of household, received clients and business associates every single morning in a ritual called the salutatio. Family portraits, wax ancestral masks, and the most impressive decoration in the house were displayed here specifically because visitors would see it first, and it functioned as a direct, visible statement of the family's wealth and status. The second is the peristyle, a garden courtyard positioned behind the atrium, fully enclosed by a covered colonnade of columns on all four sides. Unlike the atrium, the peristyle was genuinely private, reserved for family, and invited guests rather than the general flow of morning business visitors. Architectural historians are specific about this distinction. The peristyle's surrounding rooms, bedrooms, dining rooms, private sitting rooms, were typically larger, more lavishly decorated, and had better light access than the rooms clustered around the public atrium. Positioned directly between the two, on the home's central axis, sat the tablinum, the master's study and reception room, which could be closed off from the atrium side by curtains, and from the peristyle side by folding doors. The tablinum was the literal hinge point of the whole house. From here, the head of household could visually command the public atrium in one direction and the private peristyle in the other, controlling exactly how much of the private zone any given visitor was allowed to see. This wasn't a coincidence of available space. It was a deliberate public-to-private gradient, built directly into the architecture, so that a house could serve two completely different social functions, a business venue and a family sanctuary, without either one compromising the other. From the street, this two-courtyard logic produced a genuinely distinctive exterior. Roman domus houses turned almost entirely inward, presenting blank or minimally windowed walls to the street, with virtually no indication from outside of the layered public and private spaces contained within. Entry occurred through a narrow passage called the fauces, flanked in many houses by taberna, small shopfronts opening directly onto the street, often rented out or used by the household for commerce, further reinforcing that the front of the house belonged to the public sphere. This entry sequence deliberately built anticipation. A visitor moved from the noisy, exposed street through the tight fauces passage and arrived at the atrium. The reveal was intentional theater, engineered entirely through the sequence of enclosed and open spaces. The atrium's roofline was the exterior's most functional feature, sloping inward toward the compluvium opening so that rainwater from all four roof sections funneled to one central point, rather than draining outward and away from the building, the way a conventional roof would. Behind the atrium block, the peristyle's roofline typically stepped down or shifted, marked by the colonnade's covered walkway roof running around all four sides of the garden, a visibly different, more domestic-scaled roof form than the taller, more formal atrium roof in front of it. In larger, wealthier homes, this exterior distinction between the two zones became even more pronounced. The grandest known example, the House of the Faun in Pompeii, actually contained 2 full atria and 2 full peristyles, nearly doubling the entire public-private sequence within one property. A scale reserved for the very top of Roman society, but proof that the underlying two-zone logic could be repeated and expanded, not just built once per house. Step inside, and the interior organization of a genuine 2-courtyard domus reveals just how much thought went into which rooms belonged to which zone. Clustered directly around the atrium were the cubicula, small bedrooms used primarily by the household's more transient or lower status functions. Alongside the alae, open recessed alcoves flanking the rear of the atrium whose exact original purpose still isn't fully settled among historians, though they likely functioned as private conversation nooks just off the main public hall. These atrium-adjacent rooms tended to be smaller and less richly decorated than their counterparts around the peristyle, a direct, physical reflection of the public zone's more transactional character. Cross into the peristyle side, past the tablinum, and the room quality shifts noticeably. The oecus, a larger reception room, along with the finest cubicula, and the triclinium, the formal dining room, arranged with 3 couches around a low central table for reclining meals, all clustered around this private garden court. These rooms consistently received better natural light and more elaborate decoration than their atrium-side counterparts, because this was where the family actually lived, dined, and entertained people close enough to be let past the tablinum's folding doors. Some houses added a dedicated passage called the andron, a corridor connecting the atrium directly to the peristyle while deliberately bypassing the tablinum, allowing servants or specific traffic to move between the two zones without passing through the master's reception room at all. It's a remarkably specific detail, and it tells you exactly how seriously Roman builders took circulation control between public and private space. Even the household staff's movement pattern was designed around preserving that separation. The peristyle garden itself, called the hortus when used for cultivation, often mixed ornamental planting with genuine food production, and larger homes sometimes maintained the peristyle garden and a separate kitchen garden as 2 distinct spaces entirely, reinforcing, once again, this consistent Roman instinct to keep public display, private living, and practical function each in their own zone rather than blended together. Now let's translate this into a build a modern homeowner could actually undertake, because the 2-zone principle doesn't require reconstructing a Roman villa to be genuinely useful. For context, 2026 courtyard house plans span an enormous range, from compact courtyard homes under 2,000 square feet up through expansive estates over 5,000 square feet, with courtyard designs available across nearly every architectural style and construction budget. Budget tier. A single, well-placed central or rear courtyard, the modern equivalent of just the peristyle, without a separate public-facing atrium space, is the most achievable version of this idea for most builds. Courtyard houseplan providers note, this single courtyard approach works especially well on view-limited or privacy-constrained lots, and importantly, courtyard square footage is exterior space that typically doesn't count against a home's finished square footage total, even though it meaningfully extends the footprint and the daily living experience of the house. Mid-range tier. Genuinely separating 2 distinct courtyard zones, a smaller, more public entry courtyard near the front door, and a larger, fully private rear or side courtyard reserved for family use, adds real cost, specifically in the additional enclosed circulation space needed to connect and separate them, similar in principle to the tablinum's function in the original Roman plan. Modern examples of this exact two-zone approach already exist in current courtyard house plans. Designs featuring a public-facing entrance courtyard for curb appeal, alongside a fully separate, more private rear courtyard for outdoor cooking or pool use, represent a direct, functional echo of the atrium and peristyle split, sitting solidly in the mid-range of custom courtyard construction costs. High-spec tier. A fully realized multi-courtyard estate, echoing the House of the Fawn's doubled sequence, with 3 or more integrated garden courtyards, each serving a different function, floor-to-ceiling glazing, connecting interior rooms to each distinct outdoor zone, and premium landscaping and hardscape throughout, represents the top end of what modern courtyard construction can deliver, and current luxury courtyard house plans in this category commonly exceed 5,000 square feet of interior space alone, before accounting for the courtyards themselves. The honest bottom line: you don't need 2 courtyards to benefit from this Roman principle. A single, well-considered courtyard already delivers genuine light, ventilation, and privacy value on nearly any lot. The 2-courtyard version is a deliberate upgrade specifically for households that want to separate how they present the home to guests from how they actually live in it day to day. Exactly the same reasoning a Roman family was solving for 2,000 years ago. Let's go through what doesn't make it into the glossy floor plan brochures. 1-2 courtyards need real lot size to work. Genuinely separating a public zone from a private zone requires enough land to keep both functional and distinct. On a narrow or tightly constrained urban lot, a single well-placed courtyard almost always makes more sense than trying to force 2 smaller, compromised ones. 2. The connecting circulation space is a genuine added cost, not a free feature. The Roman tablinum and andron both existed specifically to manage the transition and separation between zones. Replicating that function in a modern home means additional interior square footage, dedicated purely to circulation and transition, not living space. 3. Courtyards demand ongoing maintenance, regardless of how many you build. Landscaping, drainage, and general upkeep scale directly with how many courtyard zones you commit to. A 2-courtyard property is, straightforwardly, more ongoing maintenance than a 1-courtyard property of similar size. 4. Not every household actually needs the separation. The entire premise of splitting public and private outdoor space assumes a genuine need to host business, formal guests, or a steady stream of visitors distinct from close family life. For many modern households, that specific social pattern simply doesn't apply, and a single flexible courtyard serves every function just fine. None of this makes the 2-courtyard concept impractical. It means, like the Roman family it originated with, it's a deliberate response to a specific way of living, not a universal requirement. Quickly, here's how this concept scales today. The single private courtyard, one well-placed rear or central courtyard, capturing the peristyle's core privacy and light benefit without a separate public zone. The entry and rear split, a modest public-facing entry courtyard paired with a larger, fully private rear courtyard, the most direct modern translation of the atrium-peristyle divide. The L-shaped courtyard home, 2 wings of the house meeting at a right angle to naturally frame a single courtyard, a common and cost-efficient way to achieve genuine privacy on a standard lot. The multi-courtyard estate, 3 or more distinct garden courtyards, each tied to a different room or function, echoing the House of the Fawn's doubled Roman sequence. And the tablinum-inspired connector home, a design using a genuine transitional room or hallway, glazed on both ends, to physically and visually separate a public courtyard from a private one, just as the Roman tablinum once did. If you regularly host guests you'd rather keep separate from your family's private outdoor life, and you have the lot size to support two genuinely distinct zones, the two-courtyard approach solves a real, specific problem that a single shared outdoor space can't. If your household doesn't draw that line between public and private life, or your lot simply can't support two functional courtyards, a single well-designed courtyard captures nearly all of the benefit for meaningfully less cost and complexity. So tell me in the comments, would you actually build two separate outdoor rooms into your home? One for guests, one just for family? Or does one good courtyard cover everything you need? Let me know below. I'll see you in the next one.